Hey, welcome back to Bookhunk's Adventure. Decided to chat a little bit more while I'm driving to go pick up my son from school. And the other day, actually yesterday, but depending on when this video gets up, I talked about remembering my childhood home and just, reminiscing about the house in general, some of the memories that I remember from, growing up there, and a dream that I ended up having. And then I shared a couple of Google Street View photos that I could find of the house. But yeah, last night I thought about it a little bit more while I was going to bed, and one of the things that I really remember was my dad's Dodge Challenger. It was the color Plum Crazy. It had a 440 Hemi block that he tried to put in, and all my life he tried to get that car to work and run, and he had a buddy who was a mechanic and they would work on it from time to time. But yeah, all those years I don't know if he ever got it running. I don't know what else there was besides the engine. I'm sure there were other things that probably were needed. Maybe it needed transmission work or replacement of other things, but our family wasn't well off by any means, so I suppose my dad just never had the funds to quite finish it. But yeah, I just remember him always having that car. And then I don't know where it went when we had moved to the first house that we had to rent after the bankruptcy, but then the second house that my parents ended up renting and staying at for so many years, all the way until last year when my brother and them were able to buy their own house again. But he had moved it there, and it's just sat in the driveway. We had a long driveway there, so it was kind of nice for storing things, but it was there for years, and before I'd moved, he had someone drive by and say, hey, is that for sale? I would like to buy it. And someone, he decided it was worth the money to sell at the time, and he was probably never going to get around to it. So he took the money. And then I don't know whatever happened, because then it just sat there for like a year or so. The guy who paid him for it never came and got it, but he had paid my dad, so it's sort of strange. But now thinking about it, I don't know, I'm assuming someone had to have come and got it by now since they moved to a new house. But yeah, that was something I remembered as a kid, him always just kind of working on that, and thinking about the different rooms and things, the weird built-in counter that we had in the kitchen, and our kitchen table was close to it. But I remember spending nights doing homework there. Just the layout that we had in that kitchen, and we'd play darts. We were really big on just throwing darts, and we had that set up on the sunroom door, and would kind of shoot across the kitchen table. So that was kind of interesting how that was set. I remember throwing underwear and clothes at the living room ceiling fan and just watching it spin around and then fling off somewhere in the living room. And that was like a funny memory that we had. And then in our bedroom, because we had the dresser with the shelf on top of it and then the bunk bed across, we would often put like bed sheets and things and kind of drape those across, so we would have this giant bedroom fort that we would kind of play in there. And I remember a lot of times we'd have fun just kind of doing that every once in a while. And kind of thinking back even to my dad and him visiting me in that dream when I went to the house from my childhood. He was just sitting in the kitchen. It was dark. We just had the one kitchen light on, and he was eating cereal. And that was something he often did while I was growing up. He would pass out in the evening, and then he would wake up when most of us were going to bed, and he would just eat a bowl of cereal, and then he would just go back to sleep. But I think that's kind of what happened in that dream. And with revisiting that neighborhood and just looking it up on Google Street View, it was so interesting to see. The neighborhood is so rough. It was rough before when I was a kid, but not as rough as it is now. Some of the properties, the houses no longer sit on them anymore. It's just open plot of land. They're broken down cars, some of them kind of look stripped, and sitting on the side of the road. A lot of the houses have a lot of wear and tear going on to them. And yeah, it's just nothing is really well kept. Now, luckily, you know, just outside of that neighborhood, things seem slightly better. But yeah, that block that I grew up on is very rough. And while it is sad to see my childhood home look like that, one thing that I can be appreciative is the fact that it still stands. You know, how sad would it be to look up, you know, where you lived and grew up for 18 or so years, to see that's just, you know, a patch of grass, or, you know, I guess more than a patch of grass, but you know, an open plot of field, or it's just full of junk, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And, you know, of course you can set the years differently in Google or whatever to look at, you know, when the house was still standing, but never thought about that. I don't know how far back Google goes for street views and things like that, but yeah, that got me thinking, and, you know, also just being appreciative that it still stands. I'm able to look at it. You know, if I really went back east, I could go there and then see it in person, and things like that. And it also got me thinking, you know, about me just being a homeowner now, and, you know, different things like logistics, where Amazon really wasn't a thing that we had used back then. And I'm just like, where did we have our mail growing up? And it took me a while to remember that we kind of did have a little mailbox on the side of our side door up the driveway. But I couldn't even imagine having, you know, packages and things delivered in that kind of area, especially if I went to like the front porch or something along those lines. But yeah, it's been nice to kind of think back on that and the memories, and, you know, I'm sure there'll be more that'll kind of flood into my mind as time goes on. But I think it's important to try and remember these things, and, you know, not forget about your past in terms of that and other things, and for me to have them documented just so I can, you know, remember them as I get older. But yeah, I'm at my destination, so stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next video.